Hey, what's going on? Thank you so much for watching. It would mean the world to us if you could just scroll down, like, hit the subscribe button for the Snaps YouTube channel. It goes a long way towards helping us out. Now, let's dive into some college football.
Let's start with Alabama. Obviously, replacing Nick Saban. Kalen DeBoer comes in from Washington. How do you replace someone like Nick Saban? You've worked with some incredible coaches, some of the best coaches of all time. How do you go in and fill those shoes? Or is it even possible?
Well, I think the one thing you have to do is you say you're not there to fill his shoes. You're there to be you. And
Yep.
I think Kalen DeBoer is excellent football coach, very intelligent, been around, and he's won. He's won at every level he's coached. And you look everywhere along his career, he's been able to win. So he knows how to win. He has his own credibility. And I think the biggest adjustment is going to you see that Nick Saban's around. Still involved in the program. And I think the really smart thing that Kalen DeBoer does is open Nick with open arms and want to look at how Nick did things. Now, he can't go in and say, hey, I'm just going to come in and do everything Nick did. And I think the interesting one for this to work is that mesh of Kalen coming in and saying, hey, this is now my program. I'm going to run it in my light. Hey, Nick, I'd love your input and give different thoughts, but I can't come in and do what you did. I can't run the program the same way. I have to run it how I run it. But everywhere he's been, that's been successful. And I think that mesh of them together is going to determine how fast they are successful within the new program. Because, the biggest one's going to come is the first negatives. Yeah. Right. When everybody's winning, everything's good. Nobody's pointing any fingers or talking about things when it is. But, when there's a loss, then it becomes, is this way better? Is that way better? Boy, we didn't have this problem when we were doing it Nick's ways. We won games. So I think the buy-in for all of the players. Now, I will say this. You watch Kalen DeBoer, his offense, how explosive, how exciting it is. On that side of the ball, I don't see a lot of finger pointing going to be going on, right? I mean, they're going to be saying, hey, we're going to put up points. We're going to throw it around. We're going to get playmakers the ball. We're going to be really good. And so I think they're going to look at the new offense and they're going to say, I'm really excited about this new offense that we're running and the new direction and the style is going. I think on the other side of the ball is where the defense, the defensive side of the ball, where a lot of the buy-in has to come with it's not Nick Saban's defense anymore. And, no matter who his coordinator was through all the years, that was Nick Saban's defense. He had the say of what was going on. And it's not his defense anymore. So it'll be interesting to see how that buy-in goes on the defensive side of the ball.
Do you think it's been built strong enough in this new era with NIL, with the transfer portal? Obviously, we saw that I don't think mass exodus is the right word, but there was a decent amount of guys that have left for the draft. I mean, they're going to have 4 or 5 guys drafted in the first round. You had a decent amount of guys hit the transfer portal. Your best player on that defense side of the football is now playing at Ohio State. What is the drop? Is it 2 games, 3 games? Are we talking about like a 9-win football team, or is it still good enough with Kalen to be competitive in year 1?
Well, I think in today's world, you're not going to find a program in the country that is not having guys leave. I think they brought good players in. I think the players there have an expectation to win. I think the stability and the program's built up enough. I think one of the great things that in the new world of college football, you look at Alabama, they were already at the cutting edge, right? They're not trying to go to boosters and saying, hey, the stadium needs an upgrade. Hey, we need facility upgrades. Hey, the program needs this, and this. That was already in place. And so I think when you're getting to the new world of college football, of NIL, of transfer portal, of how you're getting people in place, everything else was already all set within that program. And so I think it has the ability to move forward. And, I think they're going to make a pretty easy transition into that next step of college football.
All right, last one on Alabama. I got to ask you about Jalen Milroe, a quarterback I'm sure that you would have loved in your system just with his unique talents and obviously ability to run. With a new offense coming in, we saw what that offense looked like at Washington. How do you, as a quarterback guru, as an offensive guru, how do you play that with a guy that finished the year off really strong, that still has a lot of I would say, area of improvement, especially throwing the football with his offense. Like, how do you handle that situation? Is it completely wide open? Is it we're going to do everything we can to try to make him a better passer? How do you handle that from your perspective and your expertise?
Well, I think I think every race you're coming in, every race in spring, every job's wide open, right? And I think you have to, and I think anybody that doesn't want to accept that is not a great competitor, right? I think Jalen Milroe is going to walk in the spring. He should say, "Hey, coach, make the quarterback job wide open." I already have a lot of respect on guys on this team, so I'm not going to have to earn respect and leadership. But I want to go compete and make sure I'm still the best guy. I want you to be pushed every single day. And I'm pretty confident I'm going to win. And when I do win the job and you name me the starter, I already have a great respect of the team. And I'll have even more because I encourage competition. Just like I want all the receivers I'm throwing to continue to compete. I want the O-line to continue to compete. I want everybody to compete and be competitive in what they do. I think that the biggest one is going to be more on Kalen DeBoer and that coaching staff. Tweaking around the strengths of your players, right? Listen, if there was a perfect offense, everyone would run the exact same offense. There's not a perfect offense. Great offensive coaches have the ability and the flexibility, to have a system they believe in, but a system that's flexible enough to build around the strengths of your players. And I think Kalen DeBoer has to look and say, hey, we have a guy that is a good passer, but is a dynamic runner and with the ball in his hand. So how do we continue to I'm not going to shy away from developing him as a passer, but how do I make sure as an offensive coach, in the end, I'm going to play to his strengths? I always thought a spring ball one is fun. I would look at a Jalen Milroe and say, hey, listen, you're going to be I really feel you should be our guy coming out of this. However, I'm not going to let you run in the spring. You're not even allowed to scramble.
Yeah.
You have got to stand in the pocket and throw the ball. Now you have to break that in training camp, right? You better break it pretty early in training camp, because he's going to sit there and you're going to sit there and scratch your head and say, hey, Jalen, that would have been a 60-yard run if you took off right there. He's like, well, coach, you told me do not leave the pocket. When I've had guys that are that way, if you take away their strengths and force them to work on their weaknesses, you're going to see the most improvement. And at that point, now you have to know when you take the reins off them and let them go be the complete player. And they've really worked on, instead of relying on their strength of athleticism, they've had to work on being a pocket passer.
Well, and we talked about this last year. I remember at LSU in the spring game, and they did something similar with Jaden, in the sense of not necessarily telling him he couldn't run in practice, but everything they scripted was down the field. Like everything was 10 to 25 yards. Like, hey, we need you to get more comfortable throwing the dig routes, throwing the daggers, throwing the comebacks, throwing to the outside. So we're not even going to script anything within 10 yards. Everything is going to be down the field. I don't care if it's first down or third down. You're pushing the ball vertically down the field. And we saw, obviously, him take those progressions and those steps during the season, just his comfort level within the offense.